Sucks.
Yeah. We have the most honest fan base.
I do, and I love it. I always respond to them.
Knowledgeable fan base.
You know what I do when I hear people hate, like people are like, man, this guy sucks. This man needs braces. This man's ugly. Coming back, be like, yeah, that man is so ugly, bro. His takes are terrible.
You comment from the burner, like Kevin Durant.
Not coming straight from my name profile. I'll just comment and be like, yeah, this guy sucks. And it's me.
Easy money sniper.
Let's talk about the Detroit Lions here. There's kind of a new outlook after going 4-1. The Seahawks game kind of moved things around a little bit, whether it was record predictions or if it was the ceiling moved, the floor moved. I know there was a lot of people here at Woodward who moved their ceiling as soon as that Seahawks game hit 0-0. And there were some of us, for example, us on this show, who still kept similar expectations and said, hey, we're going to be just fine. Now, Broder, I want to see where your ceiling is right now. We're 4-1. Detroit Lions are 4-1. They have one of the easiest schedules left in the NFL. We'll start with the ceiling and then we'll move to the floor. Has your ceiling changed at all since the start of the season?
It has. I always thought the ceiling, the best case scenario for the Lions this season was 13 wins. Would be 13-4. I'm gonna raise that. I'm gonna go their ceiling. They do have the potential to get to 14-3. And if I'm being really honest, it was difficult to pick those 2 extra losses. I mean, they should be favored in the rest of their games for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So they could, you look game by game, they win out. I don't think that's gonna happen. I think they give 2 to somebody. Maybe it's the Ravens, maybe it's the Chargers, maybe the Saints. We'll see. But I have the new ceiling of 14-3.
14-3.
Yeah, up from 13-4.
Now, I'll step further with the ceiling. How far? What is your postseason expectation? What's your ceiling for the postseason?
I think they should expect to make it to the Super Bowl. I think that should be their expectations. That should be their goal for the season. If it wasn't already, they should know by this point already in the season, regardless of who they played, that they're a team that can play with anybody in the NFL.
Love that.
I'm not going to dub them the NFC's best team yet. The 49ers still look ridiculous to me.
Compete, though.
But they can, any given Sunday, any team can beat anybody. So I think they should expect to make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it. And I put here my ceiling. Before, my ceiling was maybe the ceiling was you get multiple playoff wins. You get to the second, maybe you have a chance to get to the NFC Championship and in a game to compete for it. I didn't think a Super Bowl or winning the conference championship was the ceiling before. The new ceiling to me for the Detroit Lions team, and if I'm being completely honest, is to win the Super Bowl. And when I say ceiling, that means what's the max of this team. I'm not saying they can do that and they're going to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm saying the max that this team can do. You're sitting up there right now as a top 5 team, in my opinion. We're going to do our power rankings in a little bit. You're a top 5 team. If you're a top 5 team in any professional sports league, you have a chance to win the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that is a fact. That's done. No question about it. If you want to sit here and argue with me that they're not a top 5 team, then maybe that's a different conversation. But I have them as a top 5 team in the NFL. I think majority of media, a majority of fan bases, a majority of the NFL can sit there and say, hey, this Detroit Lions team is serious. They're a top 5 team in the NFL right now, and they can compete for a Super Bowl. They're legit contenders. That is your ceiling now. And when we start getting into these topics about what players you should bring in, our power rankings, we're going to talk. I'm going to look at it as that, is that this is a team that's contending for a Super Bowl this year. They're going for what's the trophy called, fellas?
Lombardi.
The Lombardi! Everyone around the room looked at me like I was crazy for a second.
No.
We just haven't talked about the Lombardi Trophy ever in Detroit. And we're talking about the Lombardi Trophy right now. Chris?
Well, let's go a step further. What has Dan Campbell been saying in all these post-game clips that we've been seeing? Is that the road goes through Detroit.
Yes.
That is their mentality, is that they are gunning for that number 1 seed. They are gunning for a home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And again, that's their goal, that's their expectation within that locker room. And now it's up to them to just take it week by week and get the results.
That's the biggest thing, too, is there was this game, and I know everyone's so high on the 49ers, which we are as well. They're the best team in the football right now, and they just dominated the Cowboys. But there's a difference to me right now in the Cowboys and some of these contenders. Like, there's a difference between the Cowboys right now and the Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
And it's a clear difference on the way they're going about games and competing and the way the franchise is right now. So I don't even look at that 42-10 game. I just look at, hey, if the Detroit Lions right now had the 49ers at home, that's a football game.
That would be.
It is a football game.
How fun would that be?
And I know there's a lot. They probably wouldn't be favored, but they're going to go in there, especially if, say, it's at Ford Field. They're going to go in there with the chance to win that football game, especially if guys are healthy.
And in that situation, they're not a team, and I'm not trying to throw shade on the Cowboys, although feel free to let it happen. They're not going to lose 42-10. Like, that's not in their DNA anymore with the Detroit Lions. They're going to play the 49ers tough, whether they beat them or not in this hypothetical home game that they have. It's going to be a close game. They're going to battle down to the wire. It's not going to be a blowout.
That's what it is with this. Like, welcome to being a contender.
Yeah.
Go look at the playoffs. There are some games that are blowouts in the playoffs. Once you get to that Final Four and those conference championship, typically, fellas, it's close games. These are the best teams in the league. You're going down to the wire every time. It's the NFL. It's a one-possession game. Even if you're playing the worst team in the league and the best team in the league, most of the time it's going to be a one-possession. It's the NFL.
Yeah.
That's why you don't see a spread in double digits, and in college you see 20-point spreads. So now I'm going to tell you guys real quick about the Lions post-game show, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And then after that, we'll get into the floor here. So Detroit Lions post-game show. Make sure you guys tune in directly after Lions games, hosted by Tom Mazaway and Sam Stick Day, with different weekly special guests. Maybe you'll see one of us up there one time. They take callers. They break down the game, what happened after the Lions hopefully get maybe a Super Bowl win one day. Those guys are going to hold it down here in the studio. Make sure you guys tune in on the Woodward Sports YouTube channel.
Ooh, floor, baby.
Floor, yeah. So I'll go first with the floor here then.
Send it.
Before, the floor was, hey, let's just win the division. Like, you're the best team in the NFC North. I think that's fair.
It needs to be happen.
Yes, that was the floor. You finished last year 8-2. You were 5-1 in the division. The floor going into this year was win the division, make the playoffs. That was it. I think right now, obviously the division's still the floor. The minimum you want out of this Detroit Lions team is a playoff win. Where you're at right now and how good you're at being ranked as a top 5 team in the NFL, you're in the expectation is, hey, the Buffalo Bills, they have an expectation right now of going to win a playoff game every year. The Bengals, they had that expectation. The Dolphins right now, they have that expectation. The Chiefs, the 49ers, the Eagles, you're in that group of teams right now, Detroit. Your floor is you have to go out there and get a playoff win. That is the floor now. If you're going to be in the top 5 in the power rankings and you're going to be put with all of these teams, you have the same expectations as all of them. Go win a playoff game. That's my floor.
I love that. And I can get right on board with that too, Booner. I'm going to give you the record floor that I have in mind. And it's up a game from what I had at the beginning of the season. I had them at 10-5 floor, which is what I thought needs to be the minimum amount of wins. Anything less than that, I'd be disappointed. And I think if they end up with this record, oddly enough, I'd be disappointed too, and that's 11-6. I think just looking at their schedule, it's so easy. As it stands right now, I know it's football, and on any given Sunday, anybody can beat anybody, but they're going to be favored in every single game for the rest of the year, likely. Maybe not the Baltimore game, we'll see. But they need to go out and take care of business. I had them picked for a 12-5 season. I'm going to stay there on the season, but they really should be getting that 13th win. The way it's played out, and that puts them in contention for that number 1 seed.
My original, my bad, guys. I didn't kind of put my record prediction out there.
No, that's fine.
To start the season, that Tuesday when we did our first predictions before the Thursday night game, I had the Detroit Lions at 13-4. And then obviously after the Seattle game, we did basically what we're doing now. Hey, where are we at? Where's our heads at? And I was like, all right, maybe 13, maybe 12, I think was kind of the floor. And I think that's kind of where I'm at right now, is I think maybe 10 or 11 is the floor. But I'm still sitting there at that 13-4, and I'm gonna stay packed with 13-4. I think with the you're 31st. You have the 31st easiest schedule in the NFL.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, they're tied with who's ever number 32.
Yeah,
like it's easy right now.
You definitely on this schedule right now. You have 9 more wins. The Detroit Lions have 9 more wins on that schedule.
And you look at Cowboys, 49ers, and the Eagles schedule. It's treacherous. Like that Eagles schedule what was I looking at? The 49ers schedule coming up. No, I'm sorry. The next 9 games are treacherous for the Eagles.
They are.
It's nuts, and they end with the Giants, the Cardinals, and the Giants. So they have a little cushion there at the end. But who knows if the
So
Giants?
do the Lions, really, because Vikings twice.
Who knows? They could be tanking the Bears. You never know.
There might be Kirk Cousins. Justin Jefferson might be sitting out. I saw a tweet today that said Justin Jefferson's hurt, obviously on IR, but they said that since they're already 1-4, that he might consider sitting out because he doesn't have a contract.
Yeah.